Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Utah FilmPod. My name is Josh Terry. I'm here with Dani Hatch, my co-host, and my co-co-host slash former roommate slash former editor slash longtime friend slash new friend of the podcast, Tony Danza. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey!
Thanks for coming, Tony.
That's the longest title I've ever been given. That's great.
Well, I'll just wait till next time. I'll give you a better one.
Okay, I'll put on my resume.
It's building up
That's
every
good.
time because I think we had like King Casanova or whatever that one time. So
Oh, that's right. That was a good one. That was
that
a
was a
pretty
good one.
That was nice. That was nice. So how you guys doing?
Great.
How's things? How have things been going since the last time we got together to record an episode?
I had a really good glass of water, very refreshing.
Nice,
So,
nice,
yeah,
nice.
I'm feeling good.
Maybe to kind of fill our listeners in, we're going to try a new thing where we're going to kind of break up some of our subject matter and maybe try to do some more frequent, shorter podcasts rather than just epic single podcasts. We'll see how that goes. But,
Well, because there's just so much we've been wanting to talk about, and sometimes we don't.
No,
get
there
to
is.
it, and
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and case in point, we've, or at least I, and I think just kind of talking to you guys, you felt the same way. Even though this is the Utah Film Pod, these days I just kind of have this natural inclination to talk about streaming series as well, because especially when you look at something like Disney Plus and Marvel and all that, everything is just kind of integrated now, right? I mean, there are movies, there are the streaming TV shows, and it's all kind of one big animal. And so, I don't know. For a while, I've thought, well, maybe it'd be kind of fun to take some time and talk about some of these other things we've been seeing. And maybe it's just because it's the time of year where there's not a whole lot of great movies, and we're still kind of in the pandemic. So, I think maybe we should give some time to the telly. The TV, the television,
The telly.
the idiot box, as they used to call it back in the day.
The boob tube.
But now, just to further ostracize and torment Dani, I know that one of the series we wanted to talk about that Mark had mentioned was Get Back, the epic series about the Beatles' second to last album, technically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or second to last recorded, last released, isn't that right?
I believe so, yeah, because Let It Be came out after Abbey Road, right?
Yeah, after they broke up.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And after it had gotten some extra production touches from the late Phil Spector,
Mm-hmm.
who kind of came in after the band broke up and polished up to many ears in a negative way. It kind of felt like we're kind of already jumping in deep here, aren't we?
Well,
I mean,
a little
so
too deep for me.
might as
but,
well.
a little too. I know, Dani, you just got to embrace your inner rock and roll fan. Everybody by now has to be. I think it's kind of required as an American to be a Beatles fan, isn't it?
Is that an American thing? See,
I
my
think
band
so.
is the Beach Boys. That's why I know all about Love and Mercy. Like.
Oh, okay.
Like my dad, my grandpa, they both grew up in California. So it's like.
Yeah. No, that's great.
So
I
think
love the
that's
Beach
American.
Boys.
USA. USA.
So here's a question: do you guys have a favorite Beatle?
I don't know their names.
Yeah, Dani, tell us about your favorite Beatle.
I know they're like I would recognize it.
Was it Dave or was it Phil?
Something to be. Man.
It was Ricky, wasn't it? Wasn't it Ricky?
I could say John.
Oh, you could.
Or the
There is a
typical
John.
name, right?
You'd probably get a lot of agreement on that
I feel
one.
like Paul McCartney is the one that I know the best.
Yeah. He was the one that I thought was coolest as a kid. But over the years, and not just because I'm also a drummer, but I've really kind of developed an appreciation for Ringo. He's, I don't know, he definitely is kind of the the least controversial but most kind of relatable character among them, I think. I don't know. Mark, did
For
you have a
me,
favorite?
it's Paul. Yeah, I've always,
Yeah.
I don't know, been partial to him for some reason, and watching Get Back kind of confirmed to me that he really is he seems to be the driving force of the Beatles. You know, the heart
Well,
of the
for
Beatles.
better and for worse, right?
Maybe.
Before we jump full into this, I mean, this is a 3-part series. It was about 9-ish hours altogether, 8 or 9 hours of footage that was filmed while the Beatles were recording their Let It Be album in 1969. The original plan was that they were going to film the recording of the album and then film a live performance that was going to become the actual album. And then the project just kind of spiraled out of control. Originally, it was turned into a much shorter documentary that was more focused on kind of examining why this was part of the Beatles breaking up. But then Peter Jackson, a few years ago, gets a hold of all this footage and now has put together this huge series that is more of a celebration of the band, and but also kind of telling the story of this quote unquote failed project that still wound up turning into an album. You think that's good enough encapsulation?
Yeah, that seems right.
You concur? Good. Dani, how'd you feel about that?
I loved it.
Good. Is it all you need to know about the Beatles there in 30 seconds?
Perfect. Actually, would this be a good thing for me to watch to learn about the Beatles? Because, like,
No.
I was joking a lot. Like, I know about this band. Like, and I'm very familiar with a lot of these songs. I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't know them, right?
And this is kind of my basic takeaway for this series. This is a great series to watch if you are a serious Beatles fan, or if you are a serious musician, because it is so in depth that I would assume that casual Beatles fans, or people who weren't really quite so interested in like the musical process, like the creative process, would be bored to death. And because there's so many like outtakes, and they would start a song and they'd play it for 10 seconds and then stop, or they'd have a clip where they'd be kind of they goof around constantly. And I would think that if you didn't already have kind of an affection for this band or an appreciation for this is the process you go through when you're writing songs, it would drive me crazy. Like, why can't they finish a song? Why can't they just play something from beginning to end? And because there's so much of a start-stop thing through most of it, that I think that unless you're really in one of those particular categories, you come away thinking this should have been like 1 2-hour movie instead of a 3-part, several-hour series. Mark, did you?
I felt the same way, because I don't think you could even release this on a streaming service with any other band in the world. Like, I don't think people would just watch it, because it's so in the weeds and in the intricate details of songwriting. And I think it's a fascinating look at sort of real-time collaborative efforts to make a song, like to craft a song. And that's why I say it causes me to be even a bigger fan of Paul McCartney, because he does so much work on making the songs and making them better. And even John Lennon's songs. I think it was Give Me Some Truth, or one of those John Lennon songs that basically McCartney just helped him finished with him. And so, I mean, what I've heard about the Beatles, and it seemed to be confirmed to me in the documentary, is that Lennon and McCartney really did a lot of, they're always listed together as the songwriters for like 95% of the Beatles songs. I mean, it's a very high percentage, but they actually did a lot of the work on a song, and then just it was kind of like finished or touched up by the rest of the band or by the other songwriter. Like John Lennon is A Day in the Life, Paul McCartney is Yesterday. But if you go look at the catalog right now, it's just going to list both of those songs as Lennon/McCartney.
Yeah.
So I noticed that, but yeah, I think if you're into the, like you said, if you're into the Beatles, if you're into the process of songwriting or making a song with a band, or if you're just a musician, you probably would just love it. But it's long. I think it's 8 hours, and I haven't even finished it. I mean, I want to, but it is kind of repetitive in the sense that that's really all it is. I mean, the most of it is just cameras in the studio, in this warehouse or whatever, just watching them go to work, like watching the behind the scenes work.
And the footage, I mean, intentionally, because it was supposed to be like an actual production, like a documentary, but the footage is gorgeous. Like I remember, like at the very beginning of the series, just thinking, man, this just looks beautiful. It just really looks wonderful. Actually, Dani, the question that you had before was, should I watch this as an introduction to the Beatles? My answer is no, for kind of the reasons we've described.
Yeah.
If you're interested in learning more about the Beatles and kind of getting the essence of who they are, watch A Hard Day's Night. That, besides just being a fantastic movie, I think is going to be a much, much better introduction to them, and then will kind of lead into some of this other stuff. But if this is your first introduction to the Beatles, you might just be shaking your head and just thinking, why do people like these guys? Because it doesn't come through in that way. There's one other, I don't know, I have one other thing that I wanted to point out about this before we move on. Mark, what else is there anything else about Get Back that you just...
No, I mean, here's the other thing I noticed about it, because you want to get to know the character. I mean, not the characters. I mean, the real people. Like, what were they really like? And I do like how Ringo does come across as just like, he doesn't complain, because there's a lot of fighting in the movie too, just a little arguing. Ringo seems to be like cool with whatever. I'm here to keep the band together, be the glue, kind of like a drummer should be, right? I mean, you think of the drummer's role in making a song.
No, it is.
That's how
like,
Ringo's
it's kind of a cliche, but it's true.
Yeah.
It really is true.
You hear George Harrison complaining about being left out or not being included in things, and
he quits the band.
He quits the band. Yeah, there's a few scenes where it's just three of them, and they just keep doing what they need to do, or they bring in someone else. But yeah, I mean, you like Ringo, peace and love, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's how Ringo is, right?
Well, because that's actually kind of closely related to the thing that stood out to me the most. I mean, for one thing, the whole thing about George quitting the band, and then Paul and John going off to have like a supposedly private lunch, but then the director actually stuck a microphone in a flower arrangement and recorded their conversation. Like, there's some really interesting stuff in this documentary. Because I think at some point, like John Lennon basically says, okay, well, if we don't get anybody by this day, we're getting Clapton, right? Like, they're just going to recruit Eric Clapton to just join the band. But the thing that I think stood out to me that I really loved was how, when they were really struggling to kind of get this thing off the ground, and they, kind of the earlier stages, and there was bickering and tension and stuff, and then they bring their friend Billy Preston in to play some keyboard parts for him, who was an old friend that they used to tour with kind of, several years earlier. And they bring in like this outside friend musician, and as soon as he starts playing, it's like the energy of the whole documentary just bounces, and it's like the whole thing, like the band comes to life, and they seem so much happier, and things just kind of pick up a rhythm, and it's such a fun thing to watch. And I don't know if it's because I'm drawing on my own musical background and kind of similar experiences I've had with bands, where there are times when you really gel and there are times when you just can't get it together. But I loved how the tone of everything just shifted once Billy Preston arrived, and kind of, it was almost like, the Beatles' marriage was really struggling, and so when they brought somebody else from the outside in, they were able to kind of loosen up and have a good time again. And I thought that was really cool.
That's cool.
But yeah. Okay, Dani. So since we've given you Giving you a little bit of a rest. How about you bring up a series you'd like to talk about? What I mean, we got Netflix, we got Hulu, we got Disney Plus, we got
Well, we can keep
HBO Max. What have you been watching?
Well, I'll bring up what I have been watching. I think later because it's relevant to how I feel about the newest series on Disney Plus. Because this with Get Back, it's been out for a little bit, and you've just been dying to
It has.
talk with someone
This
about it.
is a very
and it couldn't
timely
be me.
episode.
Yeah.
Let's spend the first 15 minutes of the podcast talk about something that's 4 months old, 5 months old.
Well, you
Why
needed someone
not?
like Mark to
Why
actually
not?
like respond, because like all that I know about the Beatles came from like my viewing of Yesterday, which I think it's so I do love that one.
Yeah,
so
that was a great
actually,
movie.
John Lennon might be my favorite just because I love his role in that movie, kind of.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha. Were there any other series that you were watching that you would want to talk about?
Well, so with that question, it's just like, and I feel like maybe I've talked about this before, where I'm not really into TV shows a lot because like I feel like there's such a huge commitment with them. Whereas with a movie, I can just sit down, enjoy it, think about it, talk about it, and that's my, it's all wrapped up there. Whereas whenever I get into a TV show, it takes a long time, and like and most of the time, I feel like TV shows also don't end really well. So it's like, I dedicate all this time just to be let down. So a lot of the shows that I do watch, like I'm rewatching Monk for like my 4th time. All the way through. It is my favorite TV show.
Well, let's have you talk about that. I think that'd be fun.
Really? Okay. Yeah, no, I guess it's just like, I like having something to watch, like, during lunches, when my husband and I, we've been, like, working hard in the morning on homework or whatever, and we have, like, a good half an hour to an hour before we have to go to campus, and then he'll go to work in the evening, so, like, that's kind of, like, our time together, and I want to watch something that I know I'll like. And so we've been rewatching shows that we loved, and so right now we're rewatching Monk, and it is my favorite show of all time. I loved it as a kid. I loved the crime shows, but there's something about that one where, and I've noticed this with a lot of the shows that I watch, where I love that dependability with the characters. Like, you just know how they act so well that, like, as soon as a situation is presented, you are so excited because you know how they're going to react to it, and it pays off so well. And that's how I feel with Monk, where it's definitely the same thing every time, where it's like, oh, you see, the murder happen at the start, and then we cut to Monk, who has, he suffers from OCD, so he has some kind of phobia or some kind of hesitation with something, and by the end of the episode, he's going to overcome that fear ever so slightly. And I love how everyone interacts. I love their relationships. So it's just a very, feel good show for me, even though, so many people die.
Well, so I have to, I don't know that I've watched Monk. I know who Tony Shalhoub is. And I remember this is a USA Network show, right? Because
yes.
I want to say this was kind of like, this one went hand in hand with Psych, didn't it? I really like Psych.
Yeah, no, Psych I knew because like there were so many ads with Monk.
Okay.
Where they were promoting that one, and it's very much the same thing. I think Psych has a little more of a narrative going for it, like a little more development, whereas Monk is very much like the same every episode. Yeah.
No, that's what I was going to ask. Was like, do you just watch Monk episodes at random, or do you need to watch them in a particular order?
I watch them in order, but I think it's an OCD thing, honestly. And I mean, there's a little bit of progression. There's some changes. There are a few arcs, but everything is so subtle that you could watch it out of order and be totally fine. Like, it was a great show for network television, and it's great for reruns because, like, you turn on TV and it's a rerun of Monk, and it doesn't matter where you're starting. So,
Mark, what's your most rewatchable show?
Oh, that's a great question. Because I tend to rewatch TV series more than try to watch new ones, and so, for example, we've been going through Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Like lately, I've seen so many episodes of Seinfeld in the last couple of months, I mean, probably 2 seasons worth, you know. And so that one's a fun one. It just always cracks me up. The Office,
Yeah.
I took a break from because I had seen it so many times. I've probably seen it all the way through like 3 times, and I still watch clips. I'll see little clips on, online or whatever. But those are very rewatchable to me because it's just I laugh even though I've seen that episode before and I remember it. I still laugh watching it again. But yeah, other more serious ones. I like Fargo.
The TV series,
Yes.
not the. Okay.
Well, I like the movie too, but I also like the TV series. I think it's been really fun to watch all the little Easter eggs and callbacks and references to all Coen Brothers movies, not just Fargo. They've been doing. I'm through 2 seasons of that, so I just finished the second season a few weeks ago.
That's very interesting. I'm really into the Coen Brothers, so that might be something.
If you watch that, you look at the names of the characters, some different little subplots that happen to certain characters are like so similar to a movie that's other than Fargo sometimes, and even some of the titles of episodes. So it's like for Coen Brothers fans. It's like TV for Coen Brothers fans.
We should have a Coen Brothers retrospective episode.
We should. Yes, that would be fun. A few others I've enjoyed, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. I kind of pair those, obviously. I haven't seen all of Better Call Saul. I think I've seen the first 4 seasons. I've seen all of Breaking Bad, and that was probably, as far as non-comedy series goes, that's probably my favorite TV series.
I mean, first of all, I would just echo like most of what you've already said.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love Office, Seinfeld. I have not watched Fargo. Now Breaking Bad, I would probably say is one of the best shows I have ever watched, but I don't think I'm ever going to rewatch it ever again.
Oh, completely agree. I've seen it one time. I've seen the entire series once and just have no... I would probably maybe one day, but I don't have a very strong desire to just start it again because I kind of feel like I'll be hooked and have to watch all of them, and it's pretty... it's not a fun rewatch, I'm guessing.
Well, that's what I mean, right? It is a really, really well-made, well-acted, well-produced, that's why I say probably one of the best shows I've ever watched. Mm-hmm. And especially in kind of like, because Dani, you mentioned this, is like one of the problems with TV shows is that because they don't know how long it's going to go, a lot of times it ends so poorly, right? Breaking Bad is one of the ones that has such a real clear arc from beginning to end. It's the exception, but it's also so depressing and dark and miserable, and because it seems like when I was watching that show there would be one time per episode where I'd think, do I really want to watch this show? Like this is that thing that just happened was so awful. Do I want to, and so I'm glad that I can kind of draw on it and see it as such a great example of storytelling and stuff, but I don't think I'm ever going to want to just start from the beginning and just rewatch Breaking Bad. Unlike some of my favorite rewatches. I mean, I've been through 30 Rock a couple different times. The Office, like you said. We could have a long debate about this, I'm sure, but I still have a fond place in my heart for Lost, in spite of all of its missteps and unsatisfactory endings. Actually, now one I don't hear about a whole lot, but might be one of my top ones ever. Did either of you guys ever watch Friday Night Lights?
Mm-mm.
No, but I know of it.
Oh my goodness, that is such a good show. That is, I mean, it's the TV adaptation of the movie that was an adaptation of a book that was about a real life high school football team in Texas.
I've read the book and I liked it.
You read the book?
Yeah.
I checked the book out of the library and I can't remember if I actually didn't start it or if I just didn't finish it. But the movie is one of my all-time favorite sports movies. The TV show is one of my all-time favorite TV shows. And I would totally recommend that. Now we kind of, maybe to kind of steer back towards streaming. We could probably have a discussion on Stranger Things, maybe as its own episode. But this one, I'm really curious to see if you guys have checked out. Have either of you guys watched Cobra Kai?
Oh, I started that.
it.
Yeah, that's funny. We both started it.
Jinx, yeah.
I think I've seen...
So you didn't like it then?
I liked it fine.
Okay.
I've probably seen about the first 6 or 7 episodes. We've been watching it. We just started it probably a month and a half ago. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my
I
goodness.
really liked that pilot, and I think I watched the second episode. I can't commit to TV shows. It's so rare.
Such
for
a
me.
film snob.
Yeah, TV shows are rough, man.
It is a heavy investment to make if you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Like, because I remember early on really liking How I Met Your Mother and enjoying the first couple seasons of that, and then it became clear that it was just going to kind of wander because the show was doing well and they weren't going to wrap anything up, and I kind of liked the main storyline. And then, so by the time the last few seasons came out, I wasn't watching them, and then I heard about just the disaster of the finale.
Yeah.
And so I went back to watch that just to see what happened. But then it was, wow, I'm really glad that I didn't just like grind all the way through that because, it's such a disappointing ending. But now, so Cobra Kai, I have just adored because I was a huge fan. Like, for me, I would almost say that Karate Kid is like my definitive 1980s movie.
Yeah.
And so huge fan of the original. The second and third ones, had their moments, but considerably less quality, But just the concept of going back and taking the villain from the first movie and exploring his life in the 21st century is a good idea on its own. But the way that they have been handling it has been so classic. Like, as much as you enjoy Mr. Miyagi and Daniel in the original movie, the Johnny character, the way that it's being presented in this Cobra Kai show, is just brilliant. It's one of my favorite characters on like any TV series. He's like unfrozen caveman karate master, like from the old SNL. Like, they have it's like they said, okay, well, let's just pretend that like at the end of the Karate Kid he went into carbon freeze and now he's been thawed out in the 21st century, because it's like this guy's like 55 years old and he doesn't know what the internet is. Like, he doesn't know how to use a computer, and it's like he's been asleep for the last 30 years and doesn't know anything about modern technology. And I just love the way they're playing with this character, and because he's got he never left any of his kind of his 80s style behind and all this, and it's just, I don't know, I can't say that it is the best show out there. I mean, part of what's adorable about it is it's kind of low budget and it's a little not good in a lot of ways.
I noticed that the production values were not like a
right,
multi-million dollar. I don't know how many, but like you could definitely tell it's not the same budget as like The Mandalorian or any of these big, epic.
Yeah,
like Rings of Power coming out.
Yeah, that's like $500 million or something, right?
Am I the only one who's a little nervous about that one?
Oh no, I think that's the consensus.
Is it? Because
I don't know anyone who's excited for it at this point, honestly.
Yeah, I saw the trailer, I guess, during the Super Bowl and thought, ooh, that's what that's going to be? Because I'd heard about it. Well, I don't know. Like, and obviously, if you listen to our previous episode, on episode 14 of the Utah FilmPod, you know that Josh was quite wrong about his interpretation of the trailer for The Batman. But yeah, no, the trailer for, like, it took a few seconds before I realized that that's what it was. And then it kind of occurred to me, oh man, this is that new Lord of the Rings series, and this doesn't look very promising. It just, I don't know. I worry that it's going to be a little more like The Hobbit than Lord of the Rings.
But I hear it's going to be more like Game of Thrones than Lord of the Rings. So.
Okay, I could see that.
I mean, I guess part of the problem is you're trying to compare a TV series to one of the best film trilogies of all time, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just don't think it's going to live up to it. And I think maybe if we sort of all accept that right now, we can enjoy Rings of Power, right? It's probably not going to be like Fellowship of the Ring or, Return of the King. And
sure. Oh, yeah.
Hopefully, but I mean, it's got a big budget. It's got a movie-sized budget, so it should be good.
And they can never go wrong with that.
Yeah, look at Waterworld. So yeah, but yeah, that's interesting. I really just
Okay, well, let's
going back to
go
Cobra
ahead.
Kai really quickly. I just want to say something. I think the thing that I was most pleased.
Are you going to say that you're the best around and that no one's going to ever keep you down?
No, but that's funny because my wife and I, we jokingly.
Would you say that to me, Mark,
we jokingly
please?
sing that song to each other. We pretend like that's our wedding song, even though it wasn't. But like, and we looked at the lyrics, and it's funny because it's not a love song. I mean, it's a fight, like a
Oh yeah.
competition song. But the thing I like the most about Cobra Kai is the villain and hero. It kind of subverts the villain hero thing that's just very obvious, like the 1984 movie The Karate Kid, and it makes you sympathetic in ways you don't expect towards Johnny, and also kind of upset with Ralph Macchio, and I thought that was such a cool way to just kind of subvert your expectations for what they're going to do. It's not merely just a continuation of the story with the characters as the same. Maybe you could say, well, this is the arc of a character because it's a little kid who's, bullied and moves across the country, and then he finds himself and he becomes very successful as an adult. And then you have this other guy who thinks he's all that in a bag of chips in high school, and then that's where he peaked, maybe, like, I love it.
Well, and I think part of the reason for that is that The Karate Kid is kind of one of those movies that's very different to watch as an adult than a kid, and maybe to kind of keep with the TV series, I would say the same thing about The Wonder Years, which might be one of my all-time favorite movie or TV shows, is that when you watch something as a kid, you see it through very, very different eyes, and you relate and evaluate the characters differently, because I think part of the impetus behind this Cobra Kai thing is that you can go back and watch Karate Kid and realize that, Daniel's kind of, he's causing a lot of the problem here. Like, he's picking a lot of these fights. Yeah. And so it's not a stretch to kind of see things through Johnny's eyes as like, he's not this great guy. He's obviously got his issues, but Daniel was initiating a lot of the conflict and the tension. And so I've found that a lot of times, actually. Like I say, the Wonder Years is one of the ones that springs to mind because I watched it. I watched it when I was basically the exact same age as the protagonist, as Fred Savage's character. And now when I watch that show through the eyes of his dad. And it's just a very, very different way to kind of appreciate why characters are doing one thing or another. And I really enjoyed it. Now, it remains to be seen if I have the same experience with The Mandalorian, where I start looking at things through Baby Grogu's eyes. but if we're talking, because he's what, like 50, 55 years old, isn't that?
Yeah, you're getting there, right?
So
your life's only beginning. That's what that's all about.
That's the message. But really, I mean, I think right now Disney's kind of like the king of the streaming. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe Netflix has more, but Disney seems to be the one that's most catered to. Like, we're excited about, new Mandalorian and all the Marvel series, and even though I only watched the first episode of Hawkeye, but what do you guys think about the Disney Plus offerings?
So I haven't seen Boba Fett. I'm sorry, I can't speak to that. I'm going to watch it. I watched all of The Mandalorian and all of WandaVision. I guess I know there's the Captain America one and there's Hawkeye, so I'm way behind.
Yeah.
I'm like way behind. But I really liked him. In fact, I've started watching The Mandalorian with the kids and having them watch it too. So kind of watching it again. And it's funny. Jon Favreau is really kind of an underrated filmmaker and TV series maker because, I mean, he made like the best sort of modern Christmas classic. He jump-started Marvel with Iron Man. He has done The Mandalorian, I guess, from what I understand. He's I don't know if he's mainly the showrunner or what, but I think The Mandalorian is one of the best series in the last 10 years.
Yeah, no, it's good. Although, at the risk of giving a slight spoiler, you're going to have to watch Boba Fett before you watch season 3 of The Mandalorian.
Oh, no, that's good to know. I will. I plan to watch it.
Yeah.
I'm going to start it
Because
soon.
they integrate.
Okay. Yep.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what
I
I've
mean,
heard is the joke is
yeah.
kind of that it's the Mandalorian season 2.5.
Yeah, I think that's a safe way of putting it.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Good of Disney to do that. I mean, Mandalorian was, I think that's the main reason that Disney Plus attracted so many subscribers right off the bat, right? I think they exceeded
Well-
even their expectations.
And it also says something kind of bad about the Boba Fett series, which is that it didn't really get going until they started integrating other characters from the other show.
Okay.
Because it wasn't quite as good. It took a while to kind of get going, and yeah, I think that turning it into Mandalorian 2.5 definitely helped its trajectory. But I don't know, Dani, what do you think about that?
I feel so bad. I've honestly kind of stressed out about this episode a little bit because like there's so much I want to say and I want to say it the right way, and like already off the bat it's like I do feel cynical towards TV shows just in general because I feel like as a viewer I'm being milked and I hate that so much. But especially with Disney, I feel like, because it's like, hey, you love this thing, don't you want more of it? And it's actually, taken a lot of willpower for me to be all like, I refuse to watch Hawkeye. I refuse to watch Boba Fett. It's not that I'm not getting around to it. It's that I will never watch these because I'm trying. It's that whole like trying to vote with your dollars where it's just, I want to see something new. I don't want to be hurted anymore, especially from what I know of this newest show that it's really empty. And so, but we're still watching it, and we're still, like, if they did a season 2, we'd still watch it. And at some point, you kind of just have to say no and demand something better and something new. And so that's why, when you're saying, like, Disney Plus is kind of this king right now, I think it's the most successful, but I've been the least impressed with Disney Plus. I was really excited for WandaVision because I loved the style of it, but they went through that style so fast to get back to what we were used to, when it's like I wanted to stay in the 50s and the 60s a little longer because I love those shows like I Love Lucy. And I think we talked about this with being the Ricardos. It's my sister's favorite show of all time, and we watched a lot of the Dick Van Dyke Show, which was referred to quite a lot in that series, and like I wanted that. I loved that. And then it just kind of returned to like, oh no, this is what you really love. I'm like, no, I love the creative stuff. Like, I love that. So, it's just been really disappointing for me, and now it's to the point where it's like, I have to put my foot down and say, no more, Disney, you can't tempt me any further. But it has been very tempting. Like, it's hard. It's really hard, because there are some things that are good. Like, Mandalorian does have a lot of really great aspects going for it. But, season 2, I started seeing that whole, like, oh, we're just bringing back old things. You can't stand on your own two feet anymore. And that just feels like regression to me. I don't know, but I feel really harsh with this, because I think it's kind of unfair, because the quality is there, the budget is there. The acting, there are a lot of really great
But it's
things.
a fair point. Good production doesn't mean it's worthwhile.
Right.
That's...
I mean, that's... The Eternals had good production, but that was, to me, a complete waste.
Yeah.
Like, and...
There's something, I agree with you, there's something to be said for originality, and usually I will almost always give movies, even if they're not, like, originality for me is always worth at least half a star. Like, if I'm doing like a star rating and it's like, this is a new thing, this is creative, this has never been done before, versus maybe a reboot or a requel or a rehash or a sequel, it's a little bit less, like, for example, like, Batman is a little bit better than Batman Returns. But, like we said, Batman Returns is probably underrated. But yeah, I think originality is... So when I started watching WandaVision, I think we were all in the same boat. We were just amazed and sort of intrigued. Like, our interest was piqued, and we were like, what is happening here? Why is this black and white? Why is Vision and... And then when it started going to the 60s and the 70s, it was still kind of confusing, but you wanted to watch every second. to figure out what was going on. I don't want to give any
And I loved
spoilers,
the
guess,
transition.
but-
The transition was great. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I still like the ending. I mean, the way that series ended was still really cool and weird, and but
And the emotions that they hit those emotional beats really well. I think.
Yeah.
I think it was great character development and character study. Like, they did do a good job with it.
hmm yeah.
So, Dani, would you say that you've liked the Marvel series better than the Star Wars series, or is it more just that you don't like either one kind of recycling characters or ideas?
I don't like either one, I'd say, but I think the series that I have enjoyed the most has been The Bad Batch. Mostly
Okay.
because I love Omega. I think, like, there's something about the New Zealand accent that just, like, has me hooked. But, like, you know, again, it feels a little more original, and I know they're playing from, like, the Clone Wars TV series, which I watched in order to prepare myself for it, which was something else that I resented. Like, I hate having to watch one series to understand another.
hmm
But
Marvel does that. That's one of the Marvel things that they.
No, and
They
that's
do.
that's
Yeah.
one of the things that's frustrating me about Disney Plus is that, you know, especially with Marvel, just because at this point I don't know if we're going to get more Star Wars movies anytime soon, but you get the message that I'm getting is that all the Marvel movies from here are going to be dependent on what's going on in all these Disney Plus series, which I haven't enjoyed a whole lot, and so I don't really want to be accountable for, like, in order to enjoy, you know, this new movie coming out, I don't want to have to worry about 8 episodes of a series I'm not really that interested in, just so I know what on earth is going on,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
But
that's what Wikipedia is for. Just saying. I feel like I know the stories. Yeah.
My students could never hear me say anything nice about Wikipedia. I am legally, so I have to refrain from commentary there.
It's interesting to hear you, like, you're singing the praises of the Bad Batch, and I think that you're so partial to animation because you've met so many times when we talk about favorites. You talked about the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch, and even with the Batman, you know, the Mark Hamill Joker versions, which are animated Batman movies. And going back to your Christmas
Interesting.
Christmas pick, you had that Rankin and Bass Christmas movie. I can't remember what it's called.
right.
From the
Maybe-
70s.
Yeah.
I think
That's
Is
maybe,
that
interesting.
the answer?
I think that
Have we broken the code?
I think we may have.
Well, it's
Dani
weird
just likes
'cause
animation and doesn't like anything else.
Well,
That's
look at
so
what you
funny.
wanted us to watch this week. It's half animated.
Oh my word! Oh my goodness! I never thought. I don't know. I don't think that I'm really much into animation. I think it's just my Disney Renaissance brainwashing, really. Because, like, well, think about it. Like, basically
Disney
all
Renaissance brainwashing. I'm piecing that together.
basically all the movies that I grew up with as a very young kid, they were all animated. Like, more Tarzan
Yeah.
was my first phrase I ever
Okay.
learned, and like I watched that movie on repeat, and like Monsters Inc. and just a lot of those things. So like maybe there's something there, but I love live action stuff a lot. Like I don't know why, but for the longest time I was just so captivated by the movie The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Mm.
And there's
That's a
something
great one.
about but that's something you could only achieve with the live action, with those shots, with the acting, the expressions, you know. So like, yeah, I don't think it's that. I only like animation, so like I'm seeing all this Star Wars stuff, and I'll be honest, I don't like Clone Wars, and I really resented that I had to like watch it to like the Bad Batch, but the Bad
Oh.
Batch I think was just kind of refreshing, where it felt like new characters with new conflicts, and you know they didn't have to rely too much on old stuff, but I think it was just like a lot of the old stuff went over my head because I didn't fully invest into the series. So I don't know, but that's an interesting point. I would have never thought that. I have to do some soul searching now. This is interesting.
Well, it's great 'cause it
And-
introduces me
and
to
if-
stuff. Like I plan to watch The Year Without a Santa Claus next year.
Oh, wonderful! I'm so glad.
Well, I think we're working our way towards one of the subjects. I know that in kind of making our loose plan for this episode, one of the things that Dani, you wanted to talk about is animation related. So you haven't mentioned it so far, but I know that there's something in very specific that you dislike about the Boba Fett series. So maybe I ought to just like hand it off to you and let you just dive right in and in the deep end, maybe? Would that be
the deep
appropriate way?
end?
The deep
something
end?
that I find deeply disturbing.
There we go.
Yeah, no, no, and I think maybe a lot of it is rooted kind of in what I'm saying with, like, you know, not bringing up new things is, like, you know, bringing, like, literally resurrecting old characters, right? And it's this idea of the deep fakes, and, you know, we see that with Luke Skywalker being brought back in Mandalorian first, and, like, when I saw that, I was just horrified, and then, seeing that in Boba Fett as well, where I think he has, like, his own episode, really, right? Like,
So you haven't seen the episode?
No, I'm telling you, I am purposefully not watching any of these.
Okay.
So, like,
Because I thought that you had watched the episode and were just infuriated by it.
No, I'm infuriated by the concept, because anytime I see it, and, like, especially Rogue One, because I think that was the first big time we saw this, and, like, it's
for
all
Star
over.
Wars, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, had it been used...
I want to say so. I mean, I don't think Rogue One was the first one to do it, and I should probably.
And this technology has been around for a while.
Well, and as I've been thinking about the technology, I think that it's important to differentiate between de-aging and actually replacing a character.
Absolutely.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
here's the thing: the technology. It's not the technology that disturbs me. It's not that, like, oh, it's uncanny valley or whatever. Like, I'm fine with CG stuff. I'm okay with that. But, like, it's the implication of replacing...
I'm not. They look too creepy. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. It's the implication of what it means to replace the actor, and that freaks me out. Especially from this movie that I watched when it came out back in 2013, called The Congress, which was kind of this, it's literally a drug trip. It is wacky. And I definitely, Mark, you said that you had seen it, so I definitely want to pick your brain on it a little bit. But the premise of it, well, it's so hard to explain the movie. I'm sorry. Like, I want to
I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to give it a try.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I watched the first half.
Well, then you can't describe it, because you
I can give the setup.
Yeah, give the setup. Go ahead.
So, as you say, Robin Wright, she plays herself.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like some undetermined point in the future. And because of the nature of technology, the studios, rather than hire and do repeated contracts with actors where they continue to do new roles as they age, the idea is that they're going to scan them, and they're going to have like a digital likeness that they can draw on, and they can continue to plug into any kind of a movie at any age for eternity, right? And so the idea is, instead of just signing a series of contracts and kind of be limited by roles because, hey, you're going to get too old, you're not going to be as attractive, and people aren't going to want to see you in movies in 5 years. It's okay. Well, we're gonna scan you once, and you're going to sign this one final contract, and we're just going to use this digital version of you that can be whatever we want it to be, and this is it's kind of like the ultimate example of the studios have all of the leverage, they have all of the control, and all of these actors are just stuck in a position where you have no choice but to go along with this, because if you don't go along with this, you're going to be obsolete, soon, certainly sooner than you'd like.
Yeah.
And so Robin Wright fights against it for obvious moral reasons, but eventually gives in because, like you say, she's got a son who has medical issues. And then after she commits to the scan, it happens, and the movie jumps forward 20 years, and things go crazy, and that's where I totally got lost. So, but in terms of the concept, what I really loved about this movie, and I think the reason that you wanted to talk about it, is that it really kind of brings this issue to the forefront, which is, is there something unethical about bringing back actors who have passed away or actors who have not given their position or their permission, and basically plug them in and have them do performances that they're not actually doing, right?
Really, you're taking the human aspect completely out of movies, and I find that just so just fundamentally, ethically, morally wrong, for the sake of the actor, for the sake of the audience. It's just it sickens me. I think it's just so gross. And
What if you give permission, though, right? I mean, I think technically deepfakes are like without permission. They're fake, they're hoaxes or artificially created, video or audio to make it look like a person is really saying something when they're not. I mean, I guess that, and it obviously just spirals out of control and gets crazy in this movie, but Robin Wright does sign the contract for it to happen.
yeah, but what did you think of that? Do you think it was fair?
Well, no, I think
Even though she signed
yeah,
it?
I don't know if I would really say it was fair. I think it was really just she felt she had no choice because she wanted to help her son.
In Rogue One is very obvious because, Peter Cushing is not alive, and yet we see Grand Moff Tarkin. Now with Princess Leia and with Luke, it's a little bit different because, at least at the time, Carrie Fisher was still alive and Mark Hamill is still alive now. And so I don't know exactly whether they gave, I would assume they had to give some kind of permission because they'd got a heck of a lawsuit if they're just,
And I have watched some interviews with Mark Hamill saying, like, oh, Disney called me in, and because he was on the set of The Mandalorian to kind of, like, I don't know. But they didn't really use him much, but yeah.
Well, and to my earlier point, though, these examples with Luke Skywalker and with Carrie Fisher, neither of those were de-aging. They were actual, like, other actors who had the stuff, like, layered on top of them, right? Like this was not just this wasn't Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. Yeah, in X-Men 3 when they go to visit a young Jean Grey, and it's like the first de-aging example, and they just look like somebody took Photoshop and like smudged their faces so that they were smooth. It looks so bad. But that's de-aging. That's not
it's
faking, right?
Definitely very different. But the reason why I like the movie, especially that second half, is that you move from how did it affect Robin Wright to how does it affect the world. And, like, I'm not saying, because this movie, like I said, is literally a drug trip. Like, part of it is you're on drugs in this drug world. And I you can't take that literally. Like, that's not what I'm saying is the terrifying part. But something that I really think with this is that it's kind of almost like we have this fear of mortality and of aging and of death, and we need to get over it because, no, but for reals, like, sometimes actors age and sometimes they die. Sometimes characters die. And, like, there's so many times. How many times do we hate it when, the horror movie villain comes back from the dead, or, like, he didn't actually die, and we kind of roll our eyes. We're so over that, right? And I feel like it's the same thing where every time you're bringing it back, it takes away from that original moment. You're taking away that meaning of life by trying to cheat death, and I don't like it at all. And something else with the movie is because of, like, how the drugs work. It's all about how you consume celebrities, and I also find that just very uncomfortable and just gross, where it's like, also, you're not able to grasp reality. So part of reality is mortality and death, right? But also reality is you are you. And so when I watched it again, so in 2013, I didn't know about any of the scanning technology. Apparently, Robin Wright, she said during an interview during this time that she had been scanned. So, like, a studio had this digital copy of her. So, Hollywood's been doing it for years. But, like, when I first watched it, I had no idea. And, like, I was super confused by the animation. But now, like, with all the metaverse stuff, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's not, you know, these drugs. It's putting on a headset and being whoever you want to be and doing whatever you want to do. But it's not reality. And so I'm just seeing, like, watching the Congress again was horrific. Because now, in 2022, I can see, like, this is the reality we're going to. And I thought, 10 years ago, this would never happen. This is such a bizarre, weird film. And I'm seeing it. And it scares me.
Yeah, it's funny that you say how we consume celebrities. Because this movie gets to the point where supposedly they can eat and drink Robin Wright.
Yeah.
Do you remember that line? Yeah, like, I mean, it's not just put her in any movie. It's like they can do whatever they want with her. People can do whatever they want. And, yeah, it was very weird. I don't know, the deepfake thing. So I when you think about these people like Peter Cushing, maybe you just have a problem with it, but like, they did get permission from his family to use his likeness for the movie. And I don't know if you realize, but James Dean, who died in 1955, he's going to be in a new movie.
I did hear about that. And like Gene Kelly was in like a Coke commercial or something like that, like doing his little right? Like, we see it. I don't care about the permission thing. Like, I mean, I am worried about celebrities because I feel like this is going to be a terrible legal headache.
Right.
I'm worried about consumers. And it's like, what are we consuming? Like, you know, literally in the sense of this film, but also just like figuratively, like, are we become these mindless drones who just like, I'm going to pop on my VR headset and be Robin Wright and forget about actually living my life. That's what I find concerning. Not the legality, that ethics with the celebrity as much as it is the consumer.
Okay, Dani, I'm going to play devil's advocate slightly.
Do it.
Because I like the concern that you brought up.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering though is how different is what you're describing from the kind of detached living life online through video games, VR, you know, like how
video game song.
Well, no, I mean, I'm just like
No, I totally understand.
Or it could be, you know, living life through chat rooms 20 years ago, or, you know, is this just kind of like the next step in that inevitable march of doom, you know, because what the concern that you're describing, this sounds like a new version of it, but it sounds similar to the concerns that we've had with all sorts of technologies. Basically anything that, you know, takes us away from living a face-to-face interactive life out in the world versus just kind of a pretend life that is digital, right? Which might be a little ironic with us doing this on Zoom, but, you know, I'd be happy to meet up with you guys and all record in the same studio someday when we get all of our equipment together. But I mean, is that is that how you feel? Is like this is just kind of like one more step on that path, or is this something different?
Well, I mean, honestly, you're talking about that kind of stuff, and like, are you not concerned about when people have these addictions?
Oh no,
and are consumed? Like,
no,
it is
I
a
share
problem.
that same concern because I felt the same way for a long time. Is about, you know, you don't want to. Honestly, as much as I love movies and TV shows, I don't want to live my life in front of a TV screen. I don't want to live my life on a website, you know, whether it's in a chat room, whether it's in a, you know, some kind of a shared gaming environment, whether it's eating and drinking the soul of some celebrity who has been digitized, you know, whatever. But it does strike me as one of, you know, it's part of that same thing where it seems like we're talking about the same idea, which
yeah,
is
no, I agree
yeah.
with you, and I don't think that makes it either less concerning. But I feel like the way that it's promoted, because like with chat rooms, it's like, oh, you can just talk with your friends, but these are your friends, right? Or like, just the way a lot of things were advertised, where there was still that push for reality, to some extent. Whereas this one, it's like, forget it all. You can work, you can play, you can do everything virtually now.
Well, and I think this is really poignant to talk about during the pandemic, just because even before we had, let's say, a more justified reason for isolating, I mean, it seems to me like the way technology has been going for many, many years now has been, how can we possibly create a world where you can just stay at home and everything will be brought to your door. You don't have to leave your bedroom, and your food will be delivered, your media will be streamed to you. It seems like every consumable convenience is designed to enabling your isolation.
Yeah,
right?
no, exactly.
There's more, and then like I say, thanks to the pandemic, well, we've really been able to take advantage of this stuff now, right? And
True.
And yeah, because it.
But this is what I'm saying about like the value of life, though, because like think about it with COVID, like we're putting our lives, we're putting jobs, we're putting everything on hold to avoid death, because we have to control death at all costs to avoid it. We can't die, we can't age, we can't do any of these things. So we'll stay inside, and then we'll have everything come to us. There's no pressure with the presence of mortality, and then there's no actual life because you're not doing anything.
And so you're saying just roll with it, just get old and
Are you
get gritty and. No, I think
no, but this is why.
Because see, honestly, before we started in today, my assumption was that your concern with the deepfakes had more to do with a person who is passed on suddenly being recycled into new material that they didn't have any say in, and that it was more of like an ethical thing.
Which still totally a concern. I think that's still valid.
But not the primary concern you have.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I had a few things. I mean, it doesn't really specifically have to do with deep fakes, but just little funny in-jokes, things I noticed about the movie.
It's like there's a lot to talk about with it.
Yeah. So here are some things. So Paul Giamatti is in this movie, and he plays the doctor, Dr. Barker. And I was thinking about, let me back up a little bit. So there's a scene where they're saying the kind of movies that they don't want her to be put into, and they say sci-fi. Right. They mentioned that a few times. Like, sci-fi, that's beneath us. We're not going to do sci-fi. But the interesting thing that I noticed is all of these movies where a character or an actor essentially plays him or herself, or a fictionalized version of himself or herself, they're sci-fi movies. And Paul Giamatti was in a movie I saw at Sundance about 10 years ago or so called Cold Souls, where he plays himself. He's like an actor, and he's in a performance actually of Uncle Vanya, which is a play by Chekhov, and he finds this soul extraction company to extract his soul because he thinks that's what's causing his problems. And he ends up trying to get his soul back, but then he gets the soul of like a long dead Russian poet, and it helps him play Uncle Vanya even better. And so and it's kind of a dark comedy, and it's and then you go to Being John Malkovich, where John Malkovich kind of plays himself, and it's a weird, trippy sci-fi
and
movie,
the people in his mind are controlling him, right? I mean, that's the idea, is that you're not just looking at the world through John Malkovich's eyes.
Yeah. You're
actually able to kind of...
Yeah, that's true. It's not simply just being him. It's like controlling John Malkovich, and then Nicolas Cage is going to be in a movie, I think, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
I don't
know if that's really sci-fi, but it's, he's playing himself. But it's funny because that's what happens with Robin Wright, and then she basically gets put in a bunch of sci-fi movies or similar types of those kind of genre movies. Another thing I liked is the song "Forever Young," which, when you think about what the purpose of a deepfake is, She sings that. That's in this movie.
I was gonna
It's
say, is it the
not
Bob
the
Dylan
Alphaville
version?
version, but I think the Bob
Yeah.
Dylan. Yeah, it's the Dylan version. It's the one from Parenthood. They always play it at the beginning of the Parenthood TV series. Anyway, and then I liked the animation was cool.
No, the animation's insane, and that was like outsourced, I think, because like this is technically foreign, kind of like.
I read that it was animated in a bunch
Like,
of
it
different
was
countries.
just-
Like a bunch of different countries contributed to the animation. The
Yeah,
caricature
no, it's
styles of all the
insane.
famous people, like Muhammad Ali and
Tom
Tom
Cruise!
Cruise, Frida Kahlo. There's a lot of them in there. Picasso, Michael Jackson, Elvis, and Eastwood. Yeah.
See Jesus a
It
lot?
reminded me a little bit of the Al Hirschfeld drawings. Have you ever seen
That
his
sounds
caricatures?
familiar.
Like in the New Yorker? Yeah, if you look him up, you'll see what I mean. He has these really bizarre, exaggerated caricatures of famous people, but you know exactly who it is the second you see it. Like you see like Liza Minnelli's just giant eyes, he'll just take what a good caricaturist does and exaggerate. A lot of the animation in this movie was like that. Because like when you first see Robin Wright animated, when she goes to the animated world, and it's kind of freaky. Like, ugh, why did they do it like that? But then when you see the other ones, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, it wasn't a completely just realistic, like, I don't know, I can't give an example right now, but sometimes where they animate it and they want it to look as like the real person as possible. They didn't do that here. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm gonna have to think more about the whole deepfake thing. I guess I don't have the
deep
same
thoughts on deepfakes.
Yeah.
Deep into it.
Yeah.
Okay, Dani. So what's your final word then on this? This is your subject, your passion.
My final. Yeah. No, I think everyone should watch this movie. Really, and not only does it explore this, but just entertainment as a whole, like where it's going, and I feel like it's so relevant today, and it can help you kind of, see things a little further ahead, a little more clearly. Like I said, with deepfakes, with virtual reality, because I love entertainment. Obviously, I love movies, but like they're movies, and I think it's important to remember that. And these are actors, these are people. They're not for our consumption. Like that was something that just really grossed me out with that film, and I think that's on purpose. And there is this interesting point that's brought up in the movie, talking about how there are sides of truth, and I think in today's society where we're so divided, like that feels like such a true thing, and I think it's important to be on the side of reality, and so I don't know, that's kind of my soapbox thing for this movie. And I loved hearing, Mark, your thoughts on it, and Josh, even though you haven't fully watched it, I love hearing what people have to say about it, because I do think it's very thought-provoking, and so if anyone does want to watch it and venture out there, and be warned, it's insane, it's crazy, it's on Hulu. How did you watch it, Mark?
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I watched it on Tubi. I've never watched anything on Tubi, so I've downloaded it, and it's free. So now I have a bunch more movies. And when you watch it on the screen, it has it says TV PG, but there's no way that it's PG. Yeah. I couldn't, I kept watching and thinking, okay, that's kind of, they've got a couple F words. That's normally not PG.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, on Tubi, that's what it says.
I've only ever seen it edited. I am so sorry.
I don't know what the rating is even, and I don't even...
It's not rated, yeah.
The MPA must not have rated it, because I don't know if it was released in the U.S., but it was I think, was it Cannes Film Festival? Anyway, it was one of the big film festivals that it came out at.
It would definitely be an R rating, if only for the language.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a thinker. It's a unique movie, and like we were saying earlier, I like the originality and seeing something that's just nobody's ever done before. So
cool.
Yeah. So at least half a star, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Probably 3 stars.
There you go.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, guys. Well, we covered some good territory today. Talked about some favorite series, some rewatchable series, some. I mean, an older film that is now maybe more relevant. It sounds like, and with some contemporary ethical issues. So all that for free. What a value with this podcast, right? Well, thanks, guys, and thanks everybody for listening. This has been the Utah Film Pod. We enjoy having you along, and be sure to subscribe or send us comments or spread the word around, and we'll have some more. Well, actually, I think probably the next episode we'll be talking Oscars, right? So
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
get excited for those little gold statues. They are a coming. See you next time.